Hello everyone, this is Matt Williamson from New York City Guitar School bringing you another lick of the month. This month our lick is going to be the pedal steel part from Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. I'm going to play it and then we'll break it down, okay? Alright, so it's a super cool lick. It's an approximation of the pedal steel lick. It's not exactly what they play, but it's a nice approximation. You can steal all these little licks and use them in your playing. So let's take a look. So the basic idea that we're going to be talking about is holding one string static or steady and then bending the string right above it. Alright, something like this. Now the trick is going to be holding the string that you don't want to move, holding that where it is, while bending the other string without bending them both. Alright, you get some ugly dissonance if you bend them both. So what I like to do, let's start on the second and first string here. We're going to go on the 7th fret, and anytime you do a bend, it's always a good idea to line up the fingers that you're not using behind the bending finger. That gives you more control, more power, okay? And a good way to start this is to do a bend. I'm going to do a whole step bend so that the note I hear is the 9th fret. Alright, so do the bend, bring your pinky in behind it now, just so you can get used to what this little split feels like. And then you can, kind of try and bend up and down a little bit, get used to how it feels. Alright, so that's the idea. So that you can use this in your playing, I want to show you how it relates to the chord that's going on behind you. So this is a pretty smart lick. We'll call it a smart lick because it relies on thinking about the chord that's actually being played. Alright. There's a couple different spots we can do it. I'm going to start with the same bend I just used. Alright, which means you're holding the first string static and bending the second string. Alright, the idea behind this is that we're going to be landing in 2 notes out of this chord right here, which is the E form bar chord. It's an E form major chord, just so happens to be an E chord as well. So the idea is when we finish our bend, we're going to be hearing this note that my pinky's holding down, and the note that the bar would be holding down on the first string. Alright, so if I bend the 7th fret here, a whole step, it's going to wind up sounding like the 9th fret, and then I'm going to hold that 7th fret with my pinky as we do the bend. So we'll actually be hitting a couple of notes in the chord here. So the way I visualize it, when I play this bend, I'm thinking about that chord right there. It lines up with these 2 fingers, and the chord name is going to be right there in the 5th string. So in this case, since I have an E right here, this lick fits over the E chord very nicely. It's a pedal steel sort of lick, so it's going to have a kind of a country flair to it. Like me! Alright, so if we were playing this chord on a C, for example, here's my C on the 5th string, so I would play that lick right here so that I'm on the same fret as my C. And you can hear it sounds nice over the C chord. Alright, so that's one place you can do it. You can also do this same lick on the 2nd and 3rd string, which we'll see later on in the lick. Since that tuning is a little different on those 2 strings, we have to split our fingers. So instead of being on the same fret for this, we'll be on a different fret. Alright, so the 3rd string will be a fret lower than the 2nd string. But it's the same idea. We want to line up some fingers behind our bending finger on the 3rd string. We want to keep this pinky right where it is, play those 2 strings, and just bend the 3rd string. Okay? The way I like to line this one up is whatever note this is here on the 1st string is going to be the chord that this works over. Alright, so since there's a D right here, this lick works over a D chord. Alright, and just to kind of break it down, there's a D chord that sits right in here. This is our E form major chord. And when we do this lick, we're going to wind up hearing the note that my middle finger's playing and the note that my bar is playing on the 2nd string here. Alright, so there's the note. I'm going to bend this fret so that we hear this note. I'm going to hold that note with my pinky. And we're playing those 2 notes. You can hear them, they're the same. Alright, and that gives us a little piece of the D chord. If we wanted to do this with an E, for instance, I'll line it up with the E that's there on the first string, and there's my chord. And that's going to be the last bend we'll hear in the lick later, is that bend. Alright, so there's a couple spots you can do it. Let's go ahead and talk about the chords that are behind the lick so we can kind of understand it in context. The first chord is going to be C sharp minor. Alright, we're going to use a variation of our bend to start off. So we said that if we had a C sharp major chord, we could take that note and line it up with that part of the lick. Alright, since the first chord is C sharp minor, I'm just not going to bend this as far. I'm going to do a half step bend instead of a whole step bend. That's going to give me this note when I bend instead of this note. Alright, and in the minor chord, that's the note we want. That note. Alright, so when we do our first bend, same idea, but just go up a half step. Alright, we're also going to play it all the way up here. Crazy land. This is the 16th fret. So I've got my two fingers here, and we're going to bend just a half step, like that. I also have the amp saturated with a ton of reverb, which just sounds nice in the song. So we'll do that little bend, then we'll do it again, and this time we're letting it down. So bend up, then up and down, and then I'm going to let the other fingers go so that I have my 14th and 16th fret here to play that note. That's going to be the first little piece. Alright, and I'm going to do a quick jump back to the 12th fret because the next chord that's coming is an A chord, and I want to line up this little bend with my A there. Alright, so we're going to play these two notes static and then bend them. So we have our first part, two static notes, then a bend. Alright, then we're going to play those two static notes again. Alright, so static notes, bend, static notes. With the first part. And then our final note, or our final bend rather, since the chord is now E, I'm going to line up that second bend that we talked about with the fingers staggered because there's an E right here. And I'm going to bend the second or the third string and keep the second string static. Like that. And that's the end of the lick. Alright, so we have our first part with a bend, bend and release. Got one little non-bend there. Over here, static, bend, static, bend on the second section. So we'll put it all together. And again. And that's the whole lick. Little bonus. If you have a volume pedal, you can do this a little bit with the volume knobs. I'll show you. But if you have a volume pedal, not really for this lick so much, but you can really get close to a lap steel or a pedal steel sound rather. If you play the notes without any volume and roll in the volume as you're doing the bend. So here's what it looks like with the volume knob. It doesn't work as well, but it still works. Alright, you can even do it in reverse. Play the bend and bring it down as you're rolling the volume in. So that's a cool way to sound like a pedal steel player without actually having a pedal steel. So that's the whole lick. These little bends work great for anything you want to breathe a little bit of country life into. They also work well for blues, for rock, for all kinds of stuff. So look for any spot in the little scale where you can play a bend like there, here, and pick out a little extra note to sort of stay static on top.